Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Healthy Perspective Podcast. Today, we have Miss Ann Bennett, the woman behind the growing Instagram page at simply.unconventional. Ann is a homesteading wife, homeschool mom of 3, and a fierce advocate for real food, natural living, and radical responsibility when it comes to your health. She shares bold, unconventional health tips because, let's be honest, the conventional advice just isn't working. Ann's story, her honesty, and her no-fluff approach to wellness are inspiring thousands of women to rethink everything from what they eat to how they live. If you've ever felt dismissed by the mainstream and are craving a healthier, more grounded way to live, you're going to love this conversation. And the second I saw Ann's profile, I was like, we need to talk because my family homesteads, my family lives a healthy lifestyle. We have 3 kids, and we are also trying to be advocates for people really to just think for themselves and not just take what mainstream advice is saying. So, Ann, I'm so excited to have this conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So the first question that I always like to get into is something has to inspire this type of lifestyle because you are always against the grain. You know, it's easiest just to go by whatever they tell you. And you know what? So there has to be a reason why this passion is stirred up, in you. Why don't you share a little bit about your upbringing and maybe exposure to kind of maybe the processed food? Like what was the first kind of things that started waking you up to like, man, this stuff really isn't good. And how did you get down the rabbit trail of like one thing after another? And what was like the first couple things that you started with?
Yeah. So growing up, my mother was pretty health conscious, but in a kind of following the mainstream advice kind of way. I actually was formula fed instead of breastfed because at the time that's what they were pushing. But I wasn't allowed to have soda and candy and stuff like that. But we did have a lot of like whole grains, brown rice, all that. And I think part of it, I think that what was wrong with my upbringing was that it seemed a little bit pushy and forced. And I think that I didn't really get much of a reason why. I did. The reason why was to be skinny, and that wasn't very compelling for me, I don't think.
Right.
So in college, I rebelled against that. I had, SpaghettiOs and all the nasty things.
Nice.
Those little pizza bagel bites. And then I
Yes.
pretty quickly figured out that I didn't feel very good eating those things. And honestly, they didn't really taste very good either. Like all the stuff that my friends had been able to eat, I was like, I'm going to eat that. And it's not very good. So pretty soon I kind of decided to take my own health journey. And the first book I read was The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. And when I research something, I like go all in if I'm for it. So I was all in. I did the Primal Blueprint during my whole first pregnancy, and I raised my kids on nutritious whole foods for the most part. They always had access to a wide variety of whole foods, but we did let some of those ultra processed things sneak in. We did some of the goldfish or the crackers, things that are easy, even though the majority of our diet was relatively healthy. And I think it was 2020, a friend sent me a podcast about seed oils, interviewing, I think that, who was that? The guy doing macular degeneration research, and on seed oils. Anyway, it was fascinating. And so I started digging into that. I read a lot more books. I listened to more podcasts, and I was just like, we got to eliminate these from our diet, which meant essentially eliminating all ultra processed food. They're in pretty much everything. And at the time, my kids were probably like 6, 7, and 9, maybe a little younger than that. And it was a little bit of a shock for them to just like straight up no more of these snacky type of things. So we did replace them with things with avocado oil. We had avocado oil chips every now and then, and we just picked healthier versions of snacks and then kind of phased that out to only special occasions. So that was pretty much my journey. And I've just kept, the snowball keeps rolling and picking up speed. I just kept learning and becoming more passionate about this. And so that's what we're doing now.
Did you grow up homesteading?
No, I grew up in the city.
Okay.
We're learning as we go.
Okay. How long have you guys been homesteading?
We've been out here, well, we've been married 15 years, and we've been out here 14 years. We didn't
Okay.
really we didn't really start like with animal. I think we started with chickens, and then the next
Hmm.
thing we got was pigs and then cows, and now we've got horses. We experimented with sheep and goats. We've done
Hmm.
meat birds, but we've kind of pulled it back a little right now, focusing on doing a few things well instead of all the things. But it's been really fun. Yeah.
And you talk about getting kids to eat healthy and involving your kids in like the raising up of your food. I
That's a huge
realize
part of it.
I realize this is weird now, like telling other people, but to fellow homesteaders, it's like a pride of honor. Like my daughter, she's 9 now, but from 7 years old, she could take a live chicken all the way to it's ready in the freezer, And other
Yeah.
people like you let your kid use a knife first of all, like let alone like what I mean. And I'm just like for me, like she understands the value of the life that it's not just like blades of glory like killing things, but it's like you really do appreciate and therefore you want to use all of it and they want to eat all their food because they don't want to waste it because they saw it alive and they what I mean. It really is this different emotional bond with the animal. It's not this like I love and want to cuddle this thing. It's more of like thank you and I honor the life that you gave to nourish my family. They see the food that went into it and are asking questions like how is this made, what goes into this, because all we talk about is what's in our food and like how is this different, like oh yeah, that doesn't sound as good, and they realize when they go to grandparents house sometimes and they eat foods that we don't normally feed them, they come back not feeling so good. They are starting to ask those questions of like why does this food hurt my tummy and this doesn't, or whatnot. How do you involve your kids kind of in that process, because like you said, it sounds like the paradigm shift that you're trying to implement for your family versus yours growing up not isn't necessarily different in application. You still want to have them eat healthy foods, but not feel restrictive and prescriptive, but more like this is your opportunity. How have you kind of cultivated that culture in your house?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that not only with the animals, but even with things like the garden. So if the
Mm,
kids are helping me grow stuff, they're more likely to try whatever it is. My daughter has been obsessed with cherry tomatoes since she could walk and grab them. She loves cherry tomatoes. She loves radishes. She loves lettuce because she helps me grow it. And then when it's
mm,
ready to eat, she's out there just nibbling on it like a rabbit in the garden. So getting them involved, like you said, is a huge aspect of that. Getting them involved in cooking, like all of my kids, now they're older now, they're 9, 10, and 12, but
yeah.
they can all use a knife, cut up onions. They can make dinner from start to finish, certain
Mm,
dinners. And sometimes I have them do that on their own. I'm busy. I need you guys to make dinner. And so
right.
having that ownership in that,
Yeah.
I think is huge. And then they're proud of what they've made and it tastes better because they had a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and I think I love all that, because then now you're equipping these girls to now when they go out on their own and whatnot, they're not just gonna microwave food because that's all they know how to do, but they're very equipped to probably be the mom of the house cooking for all the rest of their roommates and like all of those sort of things.
Yeah, we don't even have a microwave.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So they wouldn't even know how to use it.
Yeah. I think that also a huge part of this is having the conversations with them about nutrition and what the food does to their bodies. That's
Yeah.
something that I feel like my mom never really did for me. Like, you can't have these foods, they're bad, they're unhealthy. But I didn't really know what that meant. So I tell my kids all the time, like, we're going to be really careful about our sugar consumption because
Mm,
sugar can damage your like immune system. You're going to be
yeah.
more likely to catch that cold that's going around if you're consuming larger amounts of sugar. So we do
Yeah.
that to protect our immune system and because it's not very good for our body.
Yeah.
And we talk about what seed oils can do to our body and why we choose not to eat them. And then I show them a video online of the manufacturing process. So I'm like,
Hmm.
look at what this goes through versus we own a pecan farm and our pecans are cold pressed. So we
Nice.
cold press them into oil. So they know what cold pressed oil is, and now
Yeah.
they know what industrially refined, bleached, and deodorized and degummed
Right.
oil is. And they're
Right.
like, ew, why
Hmm.
would anybody eat that?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
just involving them and educating them empowers them, and you make it a conversation instead of like a mandate.
Yeah, yeah. I remembered what I was gonna say, and it's along those lines. How do you? word things in a way that is empowering them versus making them anxious, because I've seen it with my kids where it's like, we don't believe in vaccines for our kids. And so, other kids that go get them, like, oh, that's bad, or, like whatnot. Like, I don't want them getting anxiety of getting exposure or getting, like these sort of things either. How do you kind of develop that in a way that it's not like this, oh, this is bad, I touched it, now I'm going to get sick, or, something like that?
Yeah, we talk a lot about not judging other people by their
Sure.
choices. And we also talk a lot about, we're Christians, and we talk a lot about, we take the narrow road. There's the wide road that can lead to destruction, and then there's the narrow road. And we're going to look a lot different than the rest of the world most of the time. And we can be proud of that, and we can own that, but we don't need to condemn other people for their choices. And we don't need to be afraid of other people's choices either, or even afraid of those foods. Like, if you're going to go to a birthday party, you can choose if you want to have a piece of cake. I'm not going to tell you you can't have a piece of cake at this birthday party. We're not going to keep that kind of food in our home. But when you're out and you're enjoying your friends and it's a special occasion, this is not like a control and fear tactic. This is an education and empowering goal here with our kids.
That's good. Yeah, because I've seen that with my kids sometimes. They're like, oh, sugar's bad for me, I can't eat it, when they're at like a birthday party or something like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I'm glad that that's your your desire, but at the same time, yeah, you can't be afraid of it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've had some of those conversations too, because especially like we had a neighbor move in and he smokes, and they're like, oh no, like, he's not a bad person. We don't believe that that's a healthy choice, but we can't judge other people. In fact, he's a wonderful person and we love him, and we hope that he will make better health choices, but we're not going to judge him based on that. We're not going to judge other people. We're just going to do what's right for us. And we're going to not be too strict. We're going to enjoy life every now and then when it comes to like food choices.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Well, why don't we step into a little bit, it's like, okay, so it's great. You talked about, eating from the garden and like the Whole Foods, like these sort of things, but especially for like where a lot of my listeners are, they're packed in track homes, and really the grocery store is one of their only options.
Right.
We do have like farmers markets. We do have a growing, community together where you can kind of support local and whatnot. But what are some strategies that moms that, maybe are following you and are looking for more like practical things, that feel like they turn this way and that's wrong, until they turn the other way and that's wrong? Instead of doing the gluten option, the gluten-free option has this in it. Like, you know what I mean? How do you kind of clear the clutter for moms that are looking to make changes in their kids' diets?
The easiest thing, my rule of thumb, I don't subscribe to any particular diet. I don't think that the, keto, carnivore, whatever, like, know this is bad. Just eat real whole foods, single ingredient foods for the most part. Make the majority of your diet real whole single ingredient foods. And then when it comes to like going to the grocery store or the farmer's market, even though it's not the easiest thing, take your kids with you and let them help choose. Like when you're in the produce aisle, do you want broccoli or carrots with your dinner tomorrow? Let's help me choose. Or what looks good at the farmer's market, or take them to your local, meat producer if you want to like buy meat directly, and maybe they can see the cows and like get to know the person and feel really confident about what they're eating and where it came from, and take some ownership in that and be excited about it.
I think that's really good. And the theme of what I'm hearing you say all the way around, it's not just you making unilateral decisions for your family. You're in charge. It's not like a democracy, but it's including them in all the reasonings why. It's not just because I said so. It's because this is what we believe and this is what's best for you. And now help me make this decision. Help me create the meal. Help me pick the ingredients. Let's try this. Let's explore that. It's a very do this, do that. This one's the best superfood, so we're going to do this one. Like, you know what I mean? It's much more of a let's try and experiment, and given the opportunity to be involved in the process. That's huge for busy moms that maybe don't stay home and homeschool. Maybe like parents that are both working together that really don't have maybe that luxury of time. Really is what we're talking about. Do you have any thoughts for them that might allow them to kind of start integrating some of this into their lifestyle? Maybe it won't look the same as yours or mine, but
the slow cooker is your best friend if you've got a busy lifestyle, I think. And maybe doing some meal prep on the weekend and having meals for the rest of the week. You can even do the meal prep with your kids on the weekends. And then there's some really easy, really quick, healthy dinners. Like our default is beef and rice. You can do beef and rice and vegetables. You can do beef and rice bowls that are like, taco bowls.
Mm-hmm.
And those are really quick and easy to cook. My kids can cook that for me.
Right.
Breakfast for dinner, eggs and sausage or whatever. Breakfast for dinner is another really quick and easy one. But just even if you don't have the time to, make everything from scratch or make your sourdough bread or whatever that is
Mm-hmm.
that takes all day long, you can still make great food choices and involve your kids in a short amount of time.
And I think that's a really good point. When I was going through chiropractic school, that's when I really started to latch on to like eating healthy, like taking these nutrition classes and whatnot. I went to the University of Montana for my undergrad, and there was like a whole food store. It was called the Good Food Store, and we all called it in our little dorm like the Bad Food Store because it had all the healthy supplement, like all of those sort of things. But then towards the end of my career, before I graduated, went to chiropractic school, I'm like secretly shopping in there, not telling my friends, because I wanted to get those sort of things. But my go-to meal for probably at least 5 out of the 7 nights, and the other 2 nights I was probably over at somebody else's house eating. Like I call it a burger salad, where it was a pound of the good beef, and then I'd get like rice and quinoa, and then I'd put it on a bed of salad with olive oil or some sort of oil and balsamic. And it's like your one cooking thing, your one pan is enough for 2 meals, so you can eat it for dinner and lunch the next day. And the beginning, they made fun of me, like, how are you eating the same meal? I'm like, it's easy, it's one pan, and it's cheaper. Like, it's really not that expensive. And then by the end of, before we all moved out and whatnot, pretty much everyone is making burger salad because they realize it tastes good, it's
Yeah.
easy.
My whole
So
family loves beef and rice. We do not get sick of it. Like we do various different forms. You can do like an
sure,
Asian beef and rice. You can do a Mexican
right.
beef and rice. You can do just straight, and you can do beef and potatoes. Like all those things are, and we do a primal blend on our ground beef. So we've got liver,
Nice.
heart, and kidney ground into
Yeah,
the beef at only
yeah,
10%. You really can't taste it, but you get those additional nutrients
yeah,
from the organ meats.
yeah,
So I feel really confident about feeding that pretty regularly, and it's
yeah,
super easy.
yeah. So if I was going to summarize kind of up in what we said up until now, it's one, kids aren't a burden. They should be a
Right.
part of the process, and you should enjoy, not like should, like, but it shifting your mindset, your perspective from, oh, I have to feed these kids, or I have to find a way to eat, whatever, to this can be something that you guys all do together. And the questions that come up, like when you're cooking and how did this come? And it really just gives you the opportunity to explore food from a different perspective, from something that just fills your tummy, who cares what it is as long as they eat it, to an experience that sure maybe takes a little bit more time, but you guys are all growing closer together as a family. And when you're eating it all together, go ahead.
And you're training your future chef, because
Yes.
if you're taking the time to teach them and to cook with them, they're going to be cooking for you when they're old enough to do that. And old enough to do that is like 9 or 10. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty amazing.
It is. My daughter's 9, and she'll make her own. What else she make? She'll do pancakes all on her own. She'll make chocolate cookies all on her own. And it took a couple batches. The first batch
Yeah.
was like a buttery mess, and that, you know what I mean. And so, but there's room for that, like forgiveness too. And
Yeah.
being able to pick up your kids and empower your kids. And we're missing out on all of that if it's just microwave dinners that you eat in front of the TV. But
Mm.
when you're eating them and you're spending the time to process the ingredients, you learn how each and every thing is made over the course of time. It's not like right here, right now. Try, if you're not doing any of this and you are a microwave meal in front of a TV, type dinner. This isn't like a judgment, type of thing as you're doing it wrong. But hey, this is going to be healthier for you in so many different ways. And we get the extra benefits of being a homesteader, where we get the sun when we're working on it. We get the soil microbes when we're in the soil or touching the animals. So we get kind of like every part of the process. But if you're buying it from the store, at least getting the most out of it that you can. And it's more than just the nutrient dense ingredients. It's the experience and emotional bonding that you have with your kids. And then the
For
second
sure.
thing that I'm kind of hearing that I think is also really empowering is that it doesn't have to be gourmet. I think a
Oh
lot of
no.
people think when they're cooking a home cooked meal, you got to have this ingredient, that ingredient, this 5 course type of extravagant thing with 40 dishes, and all these other things that like you do on Christmas. Like, you know what I mean? I think that's like our most vivid visual for people that do like kind of quick meals, is like I look at the extravagance of Christmas or Thanksgiving, and that's what a home cooked meal is. But it's not. It can be 2 ingredients, beef and rice with some seasonings, or something like that. And don't feel bad about that. Like, it's whole, nutritious food that gets your family fed, but also gives their bodies the nutrients that they need to grow and develop healthy brains. And it's 1 or 2 pans, and you guys get to spend more time together and not worry about, the mom or the kids doing dishes for hours on end, after the meal.
And it's so much more healthy and cheaper than eating out.
Yeah.
So much. And you get that relationship with your kids, you get that time with them, you get to teach them and train them about the nutrition of the food. And it really doesn't have to take that long. It's absolutely worth it. It takes a little bit of habit change in order to be able to work that into your life, but it is 100% worth it. And it trains them to nourish themselves as adults.
Yeah. It's kind of what I call like the hard easy. It's not like my coin thing, but it's like it's real hard in the beginning to go from popping food in the microwave for 30 seconds and doing that for all the kids and sitting in front of the TV. It's going to be real hard to shift that because you are spending at least 30 minutes, which is very different than 30 seconds prepping and cooking your meal. It's not that long in the whole scheme of things, but you're talking about your kid being able to cook dinner for you at 9 or 10 years old. I mean, that's huge. You come home from work or, whatever it is, you have a busy day and you can rely on them for that instead of them always almost feeling like a burden. Like they're always something extra that you have to take care of when your kids can really take care of you. It can really be this involved and synergistic experience as a family instead of like, on taxes, they say, how many dependents do they have? It's like, well, we're all dependent on each other, actually. It's not just they're dependent on me, but they're looking to support me and see how they can support the family and, whatnot as well.
Yeah.
That's really good. Well, the next kind of stuff that I'd like to go into, if it's all right with you, is, a mom that's like, okay, she's convinced I can do chicken and rice. I can do beef and rice. I can do, one ingredient, those type of meals, but the labels are super confusing. And the farms, I don't know what I'm buying from. How would you encourage a mom to start researching her food and not get overwhelmed with all the different labels or mislabels or marketing or those sort of things?
I would say do the best you can within your budget, but if it is a whole food, you're making a great choice. If you can get organic because that's not exposed to pesticides. That's going to be better. But if you can't get organic, it's still a whole food, which is tremendously better than ultra processed foods. So do what you can within your budget. Organic is great. Grass-fed, grass-finished is even better if you can do grass-fed, grass-finished. And I think local is your absolute best choice. If you're able to do that, if you're able to go to a local farmer, even if they're not, certified organic, most local farmers can't get the certifications. I would still choose local over the grocery store, over commercial, conventional when possible. But you're winning if you're eating whole foods.
That's really good. And, I think moms that are listening to this will be able to take a big deep breath and be like, okay, I was worried about this grass-fed, free range, cage, like all of these, sort of labels or whatnot. But if a mom wants to take the next level, she's like, all right, I got that. What's kind of the next step to getting more unconventional and more into the real nutrition? Like if you want the ultimate nutrition, not just better nutrition.
Okay. I mean, I would say your first step is organic, but the organic label I feel like is kind of meaning less and less. Yeah, it's been very watered down. So the regenerative label is not really controlled right now. So you would probably have to look into that, but regenerative is better. Usually that's going to mean that whatever they're doing is improving the soil and the land. That's what it should mean, that they're doing practices that are supposed to be benefiting the earth and the animals. Regenerative ranching, they move the animals at least once a day, sometimes multiple times a day, which has a ton of benefits. So organic or regenerative, when it comes to beef or lamb or red meat, pork, well, not pork, but beef or lamb, grass-fed, grass-finished, where they haven't had any grain, because that's how the animal is designed to live on this earth. They're not designed to eat buckets of grain. Pork is trickier. Pork's trickier to find at the store that's been raised well. A heritage breed is going to graze so much better. Heritage pork can be finished on acorns. They're very efficient at that. Chicken, again, ideally pasture raised animals that had outside access and grass and sunshine and bugs, but that's hard to find at the grocery store too. Organic is sometimes the best you can find at the grocery store unless you're finding a local farmer or raising your own chicken. And then when it comes to things like produce and rice and beans, like organic is really the best, I think, that you can go for, unless you're looking at specific companies that are regenerative, without added ingredients that don't need to be there.
Yeah. Now, this is my experience in my office. So most of my clients are female, because typically they're the ones that start feeling sick first. Their hormones go crazy, especially having kids, and so they just feel the effects of the surrounding environment, or are more in tune. And guys just relatively don't care. So if they're looking at their budget, going from buying a $5 Costco rotisserie chicken to spending $15 on just chicken breast, what are things that we can equip our moms to kind of like shift and make it not spending $10 more on our food, but it's an investment that we're making into our family? What are some ways that we can kind of like bring maybe some people that are a little bit more skeptical, because maybe they have been burned out on marketing, or they see this company that's supposed to be good, and then they're in the news the next week because they weren't actually doing what they're doing, or this label used to mean this and now it only means this. How do you kind of maybe bring the whole family together, or people to like, let's say they don't have many symptoms right now, but they're just looking to get better? How can you help somebody rationalize that?
Well, food to me is healthcare. You are nourishing your body. And if your body is undernourished, you are going to feel the effects of that. And the effects of that can come in various different ways. And in holistic medicine, we're going to call that like the root cause. But I think for a lot of Americans, the root cause is just undernourishment for the most part. Your body wants to heal itself. It wants to be in a healthy place, but we're not providing it with all that it needs in order to do that. So I think that we invest in our health by investing in healthier foods as much as we are able to. And I think that can solve a lot of basic health issues that a lot of people are experiencing. I think especially reducing those ultra processed foods, reducing sugar and seed oils, you're going to help with your insulin sensitivity over time.
Yeah.
If you stop snacking so much, like just eat your healthy meals, stop snacking, you're going to help that insulin sensitivity. And that, like, there's so much that falls under insulin sensitivity. It controls the rest of all of your hormones for the most part. If your insulin's out of whack, if your blood sugar's out of whack, you got issues. So just thinking of food as an investment in your health and in your body.
That's good. And I think it really, when it comes down to it, it's that perspective shift again, from food is just something to make me feel not full anymore, but food is actually giving me what I need to be a better human, to be a better dad, to be a better worker, to establish a legacy. So that way, I'm not just stuck in a state of stress, fight or flight for now, but I'm actually thinking about what my life looks like in the future, And I think that is probably an answer to a lot of it. Is so many families, especially where I'm at, California is super expensive. Most families, dad and mom are both working, and they're both just stuck in a state of fight or flight or stress, really only worried about that next moment. Like we get food, we're full, we paid the bills, we're good, let's go to bed, and only to get up and do the same thing the next day. That's really what it comes down to. How can we start to shift our perspective from being stuck in a state of fight or flight and continuing to feed that? Because when you're in a state of fight or flight, you're going to be consuming more sugar. You're going to crave carbs. You're going to crave those things that continue to keep your body going and going and going at a faster pace. Our California, Los Angeles pace, that's just like a light speed, But when you take a step back and you give your brain the opportunity to go into that state of ease, now it's going to start to crave things that are going to be good for the long term, rather than it's just going to fuel your next decision. And that is like a snowball. You make one good move and like, I feel better. What's the next step? I feel better. And then that will get better. And before you know it, you look back at your life a couple of years ago to now, and it's like, my gosh, like I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. I'm happier. I'm with my family more, and good decisions will usually lead to better decisions, because you don't want to go back,
Yeah, I had a pastor that phrased it, and this wasn't food related, but you want to put the ultimate over the immediate. You want to choose what you want most over what you want right now.
Yeah, that's good, because it is that long range thought. We want to be around when our kids have kids, and we're able to mentor them and pour into them and disciple them and all that. for having this conversation with me. I think this is really awesome. I think it's super inspiring for moms that are looking for that empowerment. I think you do a really good job at just saying like, hey, it's not about changing everything. It's not about becoming someone different because you're bad. It's about, hey, let's shift our perspective. Let's honor our bodies. Let's give it what it needs to function better. We can do it one step at a time. And as a mom, our kids aren't a burden, but they are a joy and an opportunity to invest into that next generation. It's not rules to be followed, but it's an opportunity to teach your kids what really matters in life. So that way, when they're 30 or 40 years old, they don't have to go through this whole perspective shift and shift their whole, life around, but it's just been a lifestyle that they've had all their life. And I think ultimately, if they're supporting regenerative farms and people that are doing things, right, not using a bunch of pesticides and that are poisoning the land, but this next generation is going to have an opportunity to not only be healthier humans, but have a healthier earth and ultimately build a society that's not this go, 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 stress, 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 fuel the next decision with bad, you know what I mean? But looking at, hey, what's the land that I'm going to give my grandkids? Like you look at Joel Salatin, I'm sure you know who he is. And, talking about always like stewarding the land, like God gave me this land as an investment. You better believe that I want to give him a return on investment that's better than what I got in the future. So storing that carbon and building ponds. And so that way, I think his land, I don't remember the last documentary that he had, he said it, but he said his land, like a normal acre of land can hold like, and I don't know the numbers, but like 20 cows and whatnot. But his land, an acre of land, was like almost 2 or 3 times, what conventional land was, because it's so nutrient dense. They're just eating less. Can you imagine if we all were able to do that? We're able to pour into our kids. They're all able to cook. They're going to go in and all support, these farms. It's just this multiplication process of good rather than perpetuating bad. So it's, I think it's a really exciting future when you talk about more families doing the type of things, that we're doing. Where can people find you, Ann, and learn more about who you are and what you're doing and support your movement and your advocacy?
My biggest platform's Instagram. It's just simply unconventional on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. It's just under Ann Bennett. I have a TikTok that I don't love, but I am on TikTok. And my family owns a pecan farm. We are working towards regenerative farming on our pecan farm. And we're also going to eventually have beef. We're growing a herd of cattle and we're doing the regenerative ranching with the cattle. So if you want to check that out, it's Great Buffalo Pecan Farm.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ann. This is an amazing conversation. I can't wait for everybody to listen.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram at Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.